What's up, friends? How's it going? Welcome to the Julie's Paint Party YouTube channel. I'm Julie, and I believe that you can learn how to paint without having to break the bank. I just use very simple, straightforward dollar store supplies to make beautiful paintings, and I take you through step by step to make all sorts of random paintings at home. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We are painting this adorable polar bear, and originally I had made it on this 9x12 sheet of watercolor paper, and I'm going to enlarge it onto this 11x14 canvas today. I will be teaching a bunch of school kids how to make this painting in a few weeks, so this is a perfect opportunity for me to get it onto the right size canvas, and it also allows me to learn how to teach it as well when I make these videos. So I appreciate it if you're hanging out here with me today. Thank you so much. And I just want to give you a quick reminder that if you feel like you want to get together with your friends, if you have family kind of scattered around the world, or workmates, teammates, friends, colleagues, and you all want to get together and do an activity together, think about me. I'm happy to show up online. We all get together. You get to choose the painting. I will take you through step by step, and it's just a really great way to connect online because painting is a wonderful shared experience. I love painting for myself and for my meditative alone time, but man, when you get together with some friends and do some painting, it's really, really fun. So I'm happy to create and hold the space for you guys to do that. You just have to go on my website, juliespaintparty.com, and click the link, the book now link, and you can find all the details there. So with that said, let's get this party started. Okay, so whenever I make a painting, I try and keep it as simple as possible, which means I try and use as few colors as possible. So I used 4 simple colors today, being I have some black and white paint here, and I have some turquoise and some dark blue. So any variations of these colors will be perfectly fine. You could even grab some light blue if you want to, a lighter turquoise. You could mix blue and green together to create your turquoise. Or you might want to use all sorts of different colors all together, and that's fine too. I like keeping it simple, because then it kind of allows us, when we keep it to like just a few different kind of paints, we can try and get a little creative and make different colors out of the colors that we're using. So in this painting here, we're going to create a nice light background wash. We make a little bit of gray with our white and black, and we also make some different variations of this blue and bluey green colors using all the colors together. So grab those colors. I have my holy trifecta of brushes with me today. So I have my 3/4 inch Fatty McFatterson flathead brush, I have my 1/2 inch flathead brush, and I have my nice long liner brush. Any kind of liner brush will do. Even if you have a little shorty liner brush, that's cool. If you have a bigger flathead brush, that's cool too. Or even if you only have a smaller flathead brush, that is perfectly fine. These are I call these my holy trifecta of brushes, because these are the 3 brushes I use the most for all of my painting tutorials. And even though, you know, you can really dive deep into the world of paint brushes, I just like to keep it simple. I don't think that you have to have all sorts of complicated supplies to make great paintings. So that's why I keep it simple. Now, at any time, if you feel like you want to use a favorite brush of yours, or if you have a different set of brushes, it's okay. We're learning our own supplies here, so you got to do what works for you, and I'm here for it. So with that said, make sure you have a napkin, a paper plate, and a water cup, and we can get this party on a roll. All right, friends, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of my paints on my, canvas, on my palette. And just remember, we're painting at home, so just a 1/4 or loonie size if you're in Canada, squirt of paint will do the job. I also like to use up my paint, so I'm like almost at the end of my blue. I just use it until it runs out. A lot of my paints make farting noises when I make them. And what I'm doing is I'm putting them in all 4 quadrants of my plate because I'm going to be doing some mixing. So I have my white and black close to each other, and you know, we can use the center, we can use our little side pieces to create all sorts of different colors. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a nice light wash in this background using a mixture. I'm going to grab some water. I'm going to grab a little bit of this turquoise. I'm going to actually make a little pool of water right next to my turquoise. Just grab a little water, put it on my plate. Do that like 4 or 5 times. And I'm going to grab a little bit of white and mix that in there too. So I want this to be really, really watery. I want it to be able to dry really quickly. So little water, little turquoise, little white, and I'm going to mix that all into my background in all sorts of crazy ways. So I'm going back and forth, up and down, side to side. I just want to fill that whole thing in. Now, in the winter, skies tend to look a little bit on the grayer side. So as much as I really love this beautiful, bright, light turquoise color, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to use the littlest bit of black, okay? I'm not going to use a lot of black at all. Check this out. I'm just going to barely touch, and I'm going to mix a little bit of black in here just to get a little bit more of a gray tone. So if you start little, you can always add more. If you take a big scoop of black, everything is going to turn black. So I'm going to add a little bit more water to my plate. Just one more tiny, tiny little drop of black in there. And that's going to give me a different variation of color. Just to, it's almost like adds a little bit of gray into the mix. So I'm just kind of alternating. I got white, I got turquoise, I got that little bit of gray in there. And I'm filling up my whole canvas. I'm going to fill the whole thing in. Like I said, if you feel like you could use a little bit more of that kind of cold, wintry color, just add a little bits of black at a time, and that'll get you there. So I'm kind of flapping my brush all over the place. I got one. I'm flapping to the east. I'm flapping to the west. I'm flapping to the bottom of my canvas. I'm flapping. I'm flapping. And that just means that I'm going like this. I'm literally just flapping. It's like that's the sound that that it makes when you kind of hit the side of your canvas. It flaps off the side of your canvas. And hear that? Flap, 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 flap. And that's it. I'm going to leave it dry for like 2 minutes. Because it's so thin and full of water, it shouldn't take very long to dry. If you have a hair dryer, it's going to go faster. So let that dry for a sec, and then we'll come back and start putting our elements on. Amazing, amazing. So you can see it's just like this really light kind of turquoisey color in the background. It's almost barely visible. I have little white swatches, little gray swatches, and it's very loose because we're going to end up filling up most of this canvas with different colors anyways. So the first thing we're going to do, in our painting, we have all these different like little sections of water, and each section is a different color. So we have some darker turquoise, some darker blue. We have a little bit of lighter bluey turquoise, lighter blue in there as we move up. So what we're going to do is we're going to make just a little bit of a light color, whether it be, I feel like turquoise is a good call, but you know what? Maybe we'll just do it in gray to start. And we're going to map out where these lines live first, and then we're going to color them in. So, like I said, I'm going to start with some gray. I have my, what is this called? It's my medium flathead brush. And for some reason, it doesn't want to It's like really dark up there, but it's, there we go. My medium flathead brush, there we go. And I'm gonna make a little bit of gray in between my white and black here. So a little water, I'm gonna grab a scoop of white and a little bit of black. Just that little tiny corner, just to make a nice light gray. Because we're just gonna map out where our waves live and where our icebergs live, okay? So first thing I'm gonna do, when I'm putting on my paint on my brush, I'm gonna flatten my bristles. I kind of pull and I flatten my brush. So I pull out, I flip over, I pull and flatten, okay? But my brush is nice and full now, so I'm gonna start at the bottom and I'm gonna create that first big wave there. I'm gonna pull up and then over, and I'm gonna make a little bumpiness there. So what's gonna happen is everybody's painting is gonna have a little bit of a different variation. You might have some sections that are a little wider, a little shorter. It's all good, okay? It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. We're just kind of mapping out where our different colors are gonna live, okay? So the next one is actually gonna go over the top of my wave peak here. So I went up and over. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna make this nice little wave that's gonna go back here. And then I'm gonna have one that's right in the middle there. And waves generally are wavy, so they can be round and smooth, or they can have little peaks on them as well. So for instance, the next step up, I'm gonna, maybe like a ½ an inch up, I'm gonna pull over and make like a little peak. And just kind of bring it over to the other side. And then I'm going to do that one more time, just right over top, just shh. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sections of water right now. So right on the top part of this last line here, I'm going to start creating a space for my my iceberg, okay? So right here, and icebergs, they can look like mountains, they can have really sharp edges, but they can also have really like smooth edges. So I want you to keep it modest, but I want you to really just create your own style of iceberg right now, okay? So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pop up about an inch, maybe an inch and a half, and I'm gonna make a little wiggly line. And you can kind of think of the icebergs like rocks, okay? So whenever I make a rock, I hear this voice in my head that goes, so that's kind of what I'm doing, like, that's how my brush strokes feel while I'm doing it. Just to compare it, it really doesn't look the same as at all. This first one here, it's a little bigger, it's a little wider, it's all good. Now my polar bear is going to be somewhere in the middle, so I'm going to hop over and add a little bit, leave a little bit of space there. And I'm going to make another one that goes, I think I need a little bit more paint here. I never went to school for painting. I just love it so much, and I love teaching painting. And I hope that you can get down with making weird noises with me at home while you're painting. So do a little okay? And then behind there, we're gonna have one more layer of water, okay? So in behind my little piece of land there, I'm gonna make a little bit more water that's gonna cruise past it over here. And then we're gonna have one more set of icebergs in behind. So these ones might cruise behind our polar bear's head, but I'm gonna just something like that. And same over here. Kind of reminds me of the Goonies. Kind of reminds me of like the islands in the Goonies, but these aren't in the Pacific Northwest. They're in like Alaska or something. Anyways, our icebergs have different, they're rocks, right? So there's going to be different faces, like ice faces on them. So I'm going to just separate those faces right now. So right now, on this big old rock over here, I'm going to make a little area that goes down like this. On this one over here, I'm going to have a little area that goes kind of down like this. And I'm going to have one here and here. Okay. So if you want right now, because we have gray on our brush, you can totally take that little bit of gray and just color in these spots to make it already look like there's a little bit more of a shadow to that side, but we'll probably end up painting it again. But since we have a little gray on our brush, why not? Just take a minute and paint the dark side of the faces of the rocks. Just so we kind of start to see how things are gonna work out over here. Ta-da! Whoa, look, it got super bright. Go back, brightness. Shh, wipe the brightness away. Wipe the brightness away, there we go. Okay. So give your brush a rinse. So we should have one big peak wave in the front. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 little waves before we put our icebergs on here. We got one last little bit of water and then the 2 big ones in the back, okay? So any variation of lines and stuff like that is all good. When we get back, we'll start to color each individual piece in and start to bring it all together. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my big brush again. And this first wave down here, I'm just gonna paint straight turquoise. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of water, grab a nice scoop of turquoise. I'm just gonna color this whole bad boy in. Now, the gray lines that we made before are guidelines. So if you go a little bit out of the lines, it's cool. The reason we made them gray is you'll see right away is because they're really easy to paint over. There's, you know, you don't really see them popping out the background of your turquoise. They're great. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. One big turquoise wave right down in the front here. I'm gonna get any goobers out of there by like smoothing out my brush strokes. There we go, I'm just smooth it out back and forth. Now, I'm probably not gonna rinse my brush a whole lot during this process because we're gonna be mixing all these colors at random into our painting. So the next little step here, I'm gonna put a little bit of the dark blue, okay? So even if I just wipe it on my napkin, I'm gonna grab some blue and I'm gonna color this in dark blue. And you know, I'm trying to make my brush strokes like one brush stroke. So sometimes, you know, we'll make little strokes like this, but after everything's all filled in, I'll do a little back, like start at one end and kind of wipe any weird little brush marks that happen outside the lines. Because generally when we stop halfway, we get these weird little kind of brush stops on our canvas. So we'll start at one end and kind of just wipe those away off the canvas. All right. Now we're going to continue on this train here, and we're going to do a little bit of a lighter color. You know what? I'm going to just give my brush a little rinse, and I'm going to make a little version I'm going to take a little white and a little turquoise. I'm going to make a light turquoise. Okay. A little water in there. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue in with it. So it's like a light bluish turquoise color. Okay. And then that's what I'm going to paint this part in with. Now, because we're making such little amounts of paint, just adding a little bit of water in with it will help extend the life of it. And you know, you might get some paint into the other pieces of the waves. That's okay. It's totally okay. There we go. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that color there and I'm going to darken it up a little bit with a little bit more blue. I'm going to take a little blue and white and mix that in there. So this is our regular blue. This is our turquoisey light blue. And this is just going to be mostly light blue. Okay, so I'm going to back in here. Just color in and over the waves, color around them. I'm going to grab a little bit of water so that it extends the life of that color for me. And work my way back and forth along my lines. There we go. All right. Next, I'm going to grab a little water and a little turquoise, and I'm going to mix some turquoise in with that color. Now, you can make different variations of this color by adding gray in. So like if you wanted to, you could grab a little bit of black and white and make a more of a gray tone with these colors, which I love. I totally love. So that there's actually even more differences in the tones of your waves in the background. So bring a little bit more white in there. So instead of it just being turquoise and blue and light turquoise and light blue, then you get these like a little bit of slate blue, a little bit of slatey turquoise. You can use the same colors. You can just alternate colors if you want. It could be turquoise blue, turquoise blue, turquoise blue. But we just want to have a little bit like a different color for every wave. We don't want two waves to be the same color on top of each other, or else it's just going to look like one brand new wave, right? So really it's like the great Bob Ross once said, it's your world. So if you're feeling a little different for the color scheme, that's okay. It's 100% okay. All right. Now for this last one in the back, let's see, I'm going to take some turquoise and some blue, mix those together. I'll take a little bit of black and mix that in there too, slate it up a little bit. And I'm going to use this color for my back color over here. If you need to use a smaller brush, please feel free to do so. There we go. Now, while I have a little bit of this fun color on my brush, and this is just for fun, I did not do this in my other painting, but I feel like it, you know, it could just be fun just to add a few little watery lines throughout that are different from this one. So I'm going to take this brush, I'm going to flatten it out. I'm going to make sure that it's nice and flat so all of my bristles are put together. And I'm just going to do like just a couple, not too many, just a couple little wavy lines. Just for fun, that's all I'm going to do, okay? Now, from this point, what I want you to do is just make sure you have these different separations of color. and make sure it's all filled in. So if you have any like little empty canvas holes, you can fill those parts in. You can, you know, change some of the colors. If you're not vibing with some of the colors, you can totally like change the hue of some of them. That's totally fine. So take a few minutes to do that. And when we come back, we'll start to just color in all the other stuff. And we got to get that polar bear on there too. Fantastic. Okay, so make sure you have some beautiful, just straight white paint right now, all right? And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take just a little water on my brush, and I'm gonna get these, I have a really hard time saying iceberg, hey? Like this whole time I'm totally struggling to say the word iceberg. So I'm gonna paint these guys white here. We already have that gray spot on the other side. And I'm gonna paint over the gray line that's there. So you can even like do a little, if you wanna add a little bit more white into the outside edge of it. We can also, if you want, keep these a little bit more on the gray side. So if you wanna grab a little bit of gray, just to kind of keep the color a little bit different from what our polar bear is gonna look like. A little bit of gray is cool too, especially for our back. Icebergs, oh my goodness. There. I'm going to color this side a little darker. And icebergs have lots of different like variations of like faces on them. So, you know, if you have like a couple different variations of gray in there, that's going to be all good, my friend. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing with these guys here. Now, I just want to make sure that they're a little bit brighter than the ones in the background. So the background ones, they're out in the sea. These ones are coming in a little bit closer, so we're going to see a little bit more lightness to them. And I still have like a little bit of light gray on my brush, but I'm picking up the white from my palette to bring in and just kind of mix with the light gray that's already on there. There we go. Beauty. Now the funny thing is that we are putting a polar bear right on top here. So there's going to be areas like this area here that gets cut off a little bit, same with over here. And you know, that's fine, because it's just like, that's the way painting works. If we would have drawn on all of our elements first, then maybe we could keep it in line a little bit more. But for this painting, and I like to switch it up. Sometimes I like to draw my, my main characters on beforehand, and sometimes I think it's a good idea just to kind of remember that we don't have to do that, and we can just start from the back and work our way forward. And I think there's value in both. Okay, so for this one, we are starting from the background, working our way forward, putting all the elements on, and then we're going to put our polar bear right on top of this. Okay, so before we do that, just make sure you have your icebergs colored in as much as you possibly can. Oh my God, really. It's an iceberg, 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 iceberg. I honestly can't, my brain cannot say that word in the right timing. It takes me like, I have like a glitch in my brain or something. Anyways, make sure those are colored in, and then we're gonna start to map out where our polar bear lives. Nice. Okay, so we're gonna really Bob Ross it up right now, which means we are going to just go for it. And we're gonna put a big element on top of all of our other elements, and we're gonna do our best. I'm just gonna make sure I have some nice solid, make sure I have enough white. The polar bear, we're gonna map it on little by little, and it's not gonna look good at first. It's gonna be a little bit see-through, so we're gonna either pick up some of the colors from the background, or we're gonna see a lot of the colors from the background, and that's okay because we're planning on giving it a second coat of paint when we are there, okay? So just take a look. Our polar bear head is basically rectangular to start. So we can make a rectangle just starting small, and from there we can work out the sides a little bit to give it a little bit more of that fuzzy, cozy look with some ears. Now, I have a rule that states if you start small, you can always make it bigger. But if you make it really big, it's just going to be big. So our polar bear is going to live on top of this wave and into our area right here. But I'm going to use my big brush, and I'm just going to take a little bit of white. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a rectangle. So I'm going to start at one side. I'm going to pull up, over. I guess it's kind of a rounded rectangle. It can be a regular rectangle. I'm going to color that in. So this point here, I've only had to cut off a little bit of my iceberg over there. Little bit of my iceberg over here. And my bear is going to come down just in beyond this wave right here, so it's kind of living in the water. Okay. And this is really where you get to decide if you want it to be a little wider or a little taller, or that's it. So wider, taller, and there's room for both of those things. So I'm going to bring just for fun, I'm going to extend his head up a little bit, but this time when I'm putting his head on, I'm going to make a little curve at the top. So I'm going to curve up the top with a little wiggly line and bring it down. So that's going to be the top of his head. And then he's got two ears. So I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to put a little ear here. And I'm going to put a little ear here. Huh? And then because he's not just a rectangle, he's got more to him than just rectangularness. With my brush, I'm just going to gently kind of wiggle down the sides here. And as I get down to the water, I'm just going to taper out a little bit to make him look like he's got a little bit of a wider body there. Same on this side. So I'm just going to make a little wiggly line, and then as I kind of come down towards the bottom of his body, I'm going to branch out just a little bit and widen it as it gets down to that wave there. And there we go. We have a polar bear shape. Hey, pretty good. So like I said, if you want to make him a little wider, you totally can. There's absolutely room for it in this painting. It's all good. Now, we are also, let's see here, gonna give him a little high five hand. And that's gonna be coming out of the water just right here. And it's again a rectangle. So I'm gonna start with a rectangle. And to make it a little bit more paw-like, it's got a little bit of a rounded edge over here and a couple wiggly lines at the top and a little bit of a rounded edge over here. Now, polar bears are huge, so, you know, they can have giant paws, and especially if you made your polar bear super big, like, make sure the paw matches the bear. There we go. I know it doesn't look like much of a paw right now, but that's why we put black outlines on it later, right? Right. Now I have all of this white on here, and I have to give it a minute to dry so that when it's time to put the second coat of paint on, it's nice and dry and it's just going to paint right over top of it. But for now, since I have this white on my brush, now, and you might want to move down to a smaller brush to do this. I'm going to grab a little water. I'm going to flatten my brush out, and I'm going to follow the lines of my waves. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to follow some of these lines, and just use that as more like another separating element between my different colors of water. And I'm not very particular about it. Like if there's a few extra lines, like you can, you know, put a couple extra little wavies in there. And it just adds more dynamic to our water scene. If there's any spots in your icebergs, I'm getting better at it, that need to be lightened up a little bit, this is a great moment to get in there. You can even do a couple little white highlights in your icebergs if you want to. I did not do that on the original, but you know, I just throwing it out there. That's cool too. All right. Good stuff. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few minutes to let this dry. You can use a hairdryer if you want. And when we come back, we are going to do a second coat of black on our polar bear. And by black, I mean white. All right, so everything's pretty dry on this canvas. I can see a lot of my background still poking through my polar bear here, so I'm just gonna grab a little water, a little white, and I'm just gonna give it a second coat of paint to make it look nice and solid. However you want to do that, with whatever brush you're the most comfortable with. Okay, now I just put a thin coat on. It's not really thick. I don't have a lot of goobers everywhere. It's totally just, you know, a nice secondary coat to make sure that, you know, we're not seeing a lot of the water kind of popping out through the background. So as that dries, I'm actually gonna grab you can use either brush. You can use your long liner brush or a liner brush, or you can use your medium flathead brush. And I'll show you the difference between the two, okay? So I like both. It just depends on the painting. So for this one, I will always give it a rinse, and I like to smoosh my bristles together to make sure that they're nice and put together, which means that it's nice and sharp at the top. I don't have any like weird bristles. Actually, I have one weird bristly there, but hopefully that will tame itself. And it's nice and put together. So I'll grab a little bit of water, and I'm gonna grab my black by smoothing my brush into my black paint. So I'm gonna pet my black onto my brush, making sure my bristles are still nice and put together. I do always add a little drop of water, just because that keeps my lines always moving smoothly. If I don't do that, I generally find that my lines dry up really fast. So water, not too much, just a little bit of water really goes a long way for these things. And then with that said, I'm gonna start to just map out where some of my lines live. So I have my main waves here. And that works really good. but there's definitely some areas that are a little bit harder to get into, which is nice when you have your long liner brush. So the same rules apply for this guy. Water, so I add a few extra drops of water to my black, and I get my brush really, really, really filled up with black paint. I do this every single time I have to do outlines. Water, I make a little pool of water and I bring it to the side of my black paint here. And as I'm mixing it in, my whole brush gets filled up. So I get this whole big old brush full of black paint. Now, you got to be mindful. You don't want it to drip down your canvas, so a couple little extra taps or a little squeegee, like you can kind of twist off some of the excess watery paint. And that's also going to be great just to make your lines. Where are my lines? And it's the same with this too. You can, some lines can be a little thicker, some can be a little thinner. The harder you push, the thicker they are. The less you push, the thinner they are. And I'm going to do the same thing with my icebergs as well. But I'm still going to have that sound in my head that like I don't want them to be smooth. I want it to be kind of crinkly. And I do put a separation between those different colored pieces in the middle here, okay? You get the point, right? And then by the time all that stuff is outlined, we can go down to the paw. And I basically just, you can trace it out completely as it is. And then I take a couple little lines and I'll just make a couple little fingies in there, however many you need. I feel like 4 is good. 4 is a good count of paw, 4. He's doing a countdown. And then I'm going to start to do the outline of my bear. And it's cool because like I love that I made this painting a little while ago and I'm redoing it now, but they always end up looking different, and yours is going to look a little different too. So just know that it's okay. All the bears are going to be adorable, whether they're tall and skinny or wide and chubby. It's all good. Now, if you want, you can put a couple little pieces of fur on the outside. I like to pull out and just a couple little pieces of, a couple little furry parts here. And even in the ears, you can add a couple, just, it's not crazy furry. He's just coming out of the water. But, all in all, he's a furry creature, so that's cool. We got his little black parts in his ear, so I just take a little black and I'm going to give it a little wiggle. Okay, and then we're going to make the face. Okay, so just have all of your outlines done, and we'll do a little bit more concentrating on the face. It just takes a second. It's nice to have it in different steps. I tend to go a little faster, so if you need to catch up, then we'll get to the face, and then we're going to be done. All right, so when we're putting the face on here, I always like to start with the nose because it's like the center point of the face. And obviously his nose isn't going to be down here, but it can be anywhere in this general area. Now, when I made this painting, I really didn't think about it too much. He's obviously adorable, and that's fine. But polar bears do have a little bit more of an elongated face. This is more of like a spirit bear face, which is like a black bear that's white. So I probably could have put the nose down a little bit further to make it look more polar bear-y. But you know, that's all hindsight. So same rules apply. If you start small, you can always make it bigger. And generally, I like to stick with just a regular upside down triangle nose just to start. So I'm gonna put his nose like right here. Okay, so if you have like a little nose, that's great. That's a great start. And you could probably just keep it like that if you wanted to, and it would be totally fine. Nobody would even know. You get to make your bear however you want. Now, for this polar bear, I'm going to extend it a little bit. I'm just going to make his nose a little bit bigger. So it's a little flat on top. It's got a little curve on the edges. It's triangular-like, but I don't bring it down to a complete point down here. And with his mouth, I just put a little line underneath, shoop, and we can make a sad polar bear, or we can make a happy polar bear. That's gonna be up to you. His eyes are just gonna be two adorable little dots. And that's something that you can work on as well. If you want, you can actually turn the handle of your paintbrush around and dip that in your black and make two round dots if you prefer. And then we're just gonna give him a little chin. So if you just make a little line underneath of his face and a little something like that is good. You can give him a little hair under his chin. You know, you can even make a couple little squiggly lines there. It's really simple. There's not a whole lot to it. We kept it really, really chill. And that's pretty much it for his face. So from this point, you know, you can make his nose a little bigger if you wanted to. You can give him maybe a couple little hairs off the top of his head. Choo. Style his hair a little bit. But that's about it. So from this point, I just want to make sure everything looks good and is put together. So I'm going to make a little wave kind of coming out the sides. I want to make sure it looks like he's in the water. So I'm not just going to leave the paw just in the water. I'm going to make a little part of wave coming through there. In my original, I actually have the wave kind of coming up and over like this. And this is actually blue. And that just puts him in the water a little bit further. It just gives it a little bit more dimension. And you can really use any of the colors to add more detail into your stuff. So if you wanted to take the blue and add a couple little blue lines in your water, and you can do that in any of the spots just to kind of vibe it up a little bit more. Nobody's gonna know. It's only gonna look more dynamic. It's really all about stamina and how much you want to do in it. If you want to get a little bit more saucy, you could put some penguins on your icebergs. You could put some clouds in the sky. And last but not least, we are in wintertime, and I assume that it will be snowing soon. So I like to take the wooden end of my paintbrush handle and I'll pop some little snowflakes around. And you can put as little or as much snow as you want, falling into the ocean. There we go. Ta-da! Adorable polar bear. Okay, let's do a comparison. Original. Here, let me move my face out of the way here. So we have our original piece and we have our other piece here, and you can totally see the difference in what the bear looks like. Let me know, which one do you like better? Do you like the original better, or do you like the new one better? Which bear do you prefer? Honestly, I feel like I like my original better. I love something about when you have like hilarious eyes that are like further apart. I just think it looks adorable. He's a little bit more put together. I feel like he's smarter and then him. That's the vibe I get from these guys. But otherwise, pretty close, pretty chill. That was a nice time getting letting loose with some painting. I appreciate you hanging out with me this entire time. If you're still here, thank you so much. I am just always insanely grateful to share this time with my friends and teaching you how to paint. So when you're done, grab a brush, make sure you put your signature on it, because everybody should know that it's yours. I hope you have a fantastic week, my friend. I will see you later. Have a good one. Bye.